Hey everybody, welcome back to another deep dive review of Man in the High Castle. This is Man in the High Castle Season 4, Episode 7. We're just going to jump right in. There's a lot, there's a little bit to unpack, so we're just going to jump right in. So this episode opens up with the BCR. They are setting up bombs, basically. They're getting ready to attack the ports, the positions that we saw in the last episode. What I like about this scene is that it's kind of a voiceover, but Bella's really walking around to the facility. She's telling, she's acting like a leader. She's telling them, some of you might be captured. She's also saying, if you want to leave, that's fine. Nobody will harbor any ill will. And then she notices one of them who looks really nervous, and she asks him, are you ready for this? And somebody else answers for him, and she tells that person, let him answer for himself. And he does. He speaks up for himself, and he says he's ready for it. But I really like that Belle is saying, if you're captured or you're killed, your families will be taken care of. We take care of our own. We will fight to get, if you're captured, we will fight to get you out, to get you back. No guarantees about anything on this mission. But she's acting like a real leader. So I like to see that, she's starting to become a leader of this movement. In case it wasn't obvious before that she is one of the leaders of this movement, even though they try to say there's no real leadership. They kind of do have leadership, and wherever they're at, it's absolutely full of bombs. There is no. It's not like there's a few desks that are with a few bombs here and there. Right before the intro runs, we get a wide shot, and there's just stacks and stacks of bombs. So it's clear that they have enough material to do what they're trying to do. The next thing we see is that John is doing everything he can to keep as close tabs on Thomas as possible. The problem is the intelligence officer does not have access. He has access to like some what I would call public intelligence, but he doesn't have access. He clearly doesn't have access to like deep top secret intelligence. And I say that because he makes the comment the US somehow managed to become a global superpower. And then they show jet fighters and rockets and things like that. And if this guy had access to all that intelligence, he would realize that the US got that stuff from Germany post-World War II, that we basically we harbored former Nazis who were Werner von Schwan. I can't. I always have a hard time. Basically, the father of the rocket program in America. We gave that guy shelter, and he helped us produce jet technology. So he obviously doesn't have access to that. Otherwise, he wouldn't I don't think he'd be making this comment as if the U.S. didn't was like, I don't know how they did it, but somehow they managed to become a global superpower. And the other thing that I find interesting, and John points this out to him, he seems to think that the Vietnamese will be easily defeated. Now, that probably could have happened. I mean, we're gonna get into our own history here for a second. That probably could have happened if the war had not become so political. And that's where John's comment of sometimes it takes willpower to win a war. Well, I would say it's a combination of willpower and propaganda. So, and you could even say an unfriendly media at home. But that gets into a completely different conversation. I mean, there's many levels to this scene, and that's probably a different video for a different day. Next thing is that Yamori shows no apologies. He's not sorry, nothing like that whatsoever for the things that he has done. If anything, he's doubling down. He calls it he says, you call it a list of crimes, I call it a list of heroic actions. He believes that he has been completely honorable in everything. He even signs it, the war is not over until the last soldier dies, or something to that effect. I think I'm paraphrasing a little bit. But he is fully convinced that, go ahead, take that to the emperor, I'm sure he'll pardon me. So the next thing I want to touch on is that Helen invites Marguerite over to the house because Helen believes that she needs to get back in the good graces, not just of the Reich, the top power people, but also of Berlin, basically the entire Reich. She wants them to see her as a willing part of the cause. So she invites her over, and first funny thing that I think about this scene is that Marguerite brings some dried flowers and doesn't let Helen touch them right away. They're special. They have to be treated properly, and Helen can't do that. So they get a vase for it, and she tells them they're dried flowers. I guess we can probably skip to the end of this scene where Helen tosses them into the fireplace, because Helen cares so little about these flowers and really anything more than Marguerite's advice about how to get into the good graces of the Reich, that she tosses the flowers into the fire. That doesn't even care. The only thing she cared about was the tip of how to get back into the good graces of the Reich. Because Helen and Marguerite talked for a little while, and that's really all Helen wanted from Marguerite. And then the next scene of importance related to this is when she goes on that show. John doesn't know anything about this. She basically tells her home assistant that she's going to call up this person, they'll arrange it, she gets on this show, and John's friend is who comes in and informs John that she's on the show. Now the look on John's face the entire time, John has the biggest frown. He is not happy about this at all. In fact, this could really destroy him if she says the wrong thing or does the wrong thing. And at one point, when she's asked, who was with you during that first Thanksgiving, Helen is forced to lie. And we see on John's face during that questioning, they cut to John, and we see him shake his head ever so slightly, because if she talks about anyone else that was there, it could be disastrous. She lies and says, "Oh, it was just John and our child Thomas. He had just been born." So she lies about it. You get a little bit of a sense that she was a little bit uncomfortable, but not too much. John is extremely uncomfortable with the entire thing, and afterwards, I can't remember his friend's name, but he says, I'll leave you to it. I think John says he has some paperwork to fill out, and I'll leave you to it, and he walks out. And then when John gets home, John is just, you can see he's had a chance to calm down a little bit, obviously, but he tells her how disastrous that could have been, how it could have just gone south so fast. Helen justifies it, defends herself, and tries to place the blame on the host a little bit. And then Helen kind of drops a bomb. She doesn't realize it's a bomb, but it turns out it kind of is one. She asks John if he has thought about him recently, and I don't remember if she specifically says Daniel, but you know who she's talking about. In fact, I think she does mention Daniel's name. And John, of course, lies. He's on his way out of the room when she asks it, and he just stops for a second and says no. And the reality is that John was just in the alternate universe and being confronted by his demons, one of which is his friend is alive and well in the alt universe. So that entire portion of this episode, John John is I guess you'd say John is trying to keep his past a secret, because I mean, my feeling on it is that the people of the Reich probably wouldn't be too happy finding out that he was friends with a Jew, even if it was before the war. Something tells me that they wouldn't be happy about that. And John's friend is certainly not going to talk about it, you know. And the fact that Helen said, "Oh, it was just us," means that there's no loose ends. There's no one to go interview to find out, oh, is that true? Was there anyone else there? You know, what was going on? All these things. There's no one to corroborate this except for John. And he's pretty much protected from all that stuff. So thankfully for them, nothing will come of it. Throughout the episode, Juliana and Wyatt are seen in a hideout. It's a home that was previously owned by black people, and this is an area where the Nazis control it. So they were, of course, removed, and no one has lived here in probably years. But they find a stash of outfits, and as they're trying them on, Juliana's getting into a character. She's basically putting some stuff together and getting into a character trying to dress herself up as somebody who would be high class, wealthy, someone who doesn't care about the rules because the rules don't apply to her. And then they move on. They try doing this with Wyatt, and they put some items on him. And during the whole scene, there's kind of music playing on a record player. And as Wyatt looks into the mirror, the music cuts out. Just as Juliana asks him, what does this make? How do you feel? And the music cuts out, and he talks about his father.
He worked in a lead mine. I could smell the dust off him when he came home from work.
And how he worked in the mines, and he had the smell of the mines on him. Wyatt looks extremely upset. I think upset is probably even too mild of a word. I can't think of a stronger one at the time. Wyatt is just, he looks angry right now, but he sees his father. And yeah, the music cuts out, and the music switches in tone, gets a little dark, I would say a little musty, the music gets. And I think that's all to show, this is the memory that Wyatt has of his dad. And I don't think it's a good one. I mean, I hate to even laugh about that. I don't think it's a good memory at all. I don't, I would almost say he doesn't want to play the character like this, but he's gonna have to. So yeah. I don't think Wyatt likes looking like his dad because he doesn't have very good memories of his dad. Chilton gets arrested, and of course he thinks, well, his girlfriend, damn it, I don't know, I don't know why I can't remember the names right now. She's assuming the worst, of course. He's like, don't worry, everything will be fine. They take him to Keto, and Keto has no interest in, putting him in prison or anything like that. He wants information on the BCR. So they end up having a pretty peaceful conversation, and Chilton is of the mindset that you need to put them down if you want to stay here. They will fight, and they will fight, and they will keep fighting. And he even says, that's what scares me about them. They have no interest in, I would say, being subservient to the Japanese. Whereas Chilton has been subservient for a long time. He's used to it. He's willing to live that way. They are not. I actually think, Chilton's kind of nuts, personally. Despite the fact that the BCR is communist, I kind of side with them on the whole. They want freedom. They want to be able to live how they want. But while they are talking, the bombs go off and everything, and this is the last straw this becomes the last straw for the emperor, in a good way for the BCR. I mean, the bombs go off, and then the emperor announces that they are going to withdraw, and the BCR basically wins their freedom, wins their territory at that point. And we get a quick glance, not really a glance, we see Yamori, how he hangs himself, because he's completely upset that the emperor isn't going to stay and fight. But this also kind of gets into how it was in our timeline. It was very much similar. The military side wanted to fight until the last man was dead, whereas the emperor didn't want to continue fighting. Either he realized the amount of people that would be lost, or the U.S. basically said, this is how many people are going to be lost. Because the emperor was like, okay, no, we're not going to fight anymore. Again, I'm talking about our timeline. We're not going to fight anymore. And the military wanted to continue it. So in their universe, kind of the same thing. They tell Saito, look, your army failed, all this stuff. And then Saito tries to defend his army by saying Yamori was right. And then Inakuchi responds to that and says, no, you killed the only chance we had for peace negotiations when you killed Equiano. And of course, this is great news for John, right? You'd think this is great news for John and Whitcroft. In fact, Whitcroft even says, we're going to be one country again. Whitcroft's idea of one country is different from John's idea of one country. John is so deep into the Reich now, and so I believe that John just accepted all these beliefs, despite the fact that there was people above, a few people above and people below him. I think John accepted the beliefs, whereas Whitcroft, I think, has not really bought into the whole thing, and he's just been kind of going along, and he's been rising up the ranks anyway. So, you know, well, I mean, we don't find it out for another episode or two, but I think that Whitcroft's idea was, we'll be one country again, and then we can have freedom again. Whereas John's is, yes, we'll be one country again, we'll be an American Reich. And I don't think they were on the same page there. Obviously, again, we'll see that in later episodes. Anyway, that's all I got for this episode. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to hit subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get notified of future episodes. If you have any comments, anything you want to add, anything I missed, go ahead and comment below. And make sure you like this video. And we'll see you in the next one.